Right. So it's been quite a long day, hasn't it? So my name is Rikki Arundel. Get this pronunciation right. As in the town, as in the city. This is a picture of a TED talk I did in 2014, October 2014. It was published 3 years ago. 70,000 views it's had now. I've just applied to try and get myself to do another TED talk, hopefully in Glasgow. Because it's amazing, since I did that TED talk, and some of you may have seen that, just how much has changed. Today I see that we're on future focus. So what I want to talk about today is a little bit about where we are, and I want to start to shift us into where we might be going, because there are a lot of things happening, a lot of things are transforming, a lot of things are changing, and I don't think we're ready for them. I don't think we're ready for them because basically our language doesn't enable us to cope with what is happening. We just don't have the basic language to enable us. And I was at a Mind, Body, Spirit festival the other day, just to give you some idea of the sorts of things that happen. I'm quietly sitting in the my little private cubicle, just on my own. I didn't know girls sometimes shared, but I've got that one now. But I'm quietly in the cubicle, and suddenly I hear a voice from somebody sitting on the other side. She says, "Well, I don't think they should be allowed in here. In America, they have separate toilets for them now." I thought, oh, this is going to be a funny conversation when she comes out of here. I mean, did you see that one walking around earlier on? I mean, you don't know what to say, do you? I thought, oh, it's going to be fun. So I left the toilet, washing my hands. I heard the door open behind me, looked around, and oh my God, the embarrassment on her face. You have no idea when you are going to really drop yourself in it, do you? But that's a reflection of people's attitudes. It's a reflection of how people feel. I just don't know what to say. I feel I'm going to say something wrong. I'm going to upset somebody. I'm going to get it all up the wall. So we're going to try and play with this today. So here's an important question. Any of you here in maternity? Yeah? Or been involved in it? Anybody got children? Anybody who were a child? Yeah. It's the first question, isn't it? We don't say, is the child healthy? Is the child fit? Does it have all its arms and things? No. The only thing we want to know, is it a boy or a girl? What if the answer is no? How do you deal with that? If the answer to that question is no, what happens next? You had a little trial earlier on with a little experiment where you were talking to each other, not using various different pronouns. What happens when you cannot use he and she, him and her? How do you talk about people? What would you do if somebody said, no, I'm not male or female? I'm in East Riding Council. I'm going to a meeting. I said, I've got to meet somebody. Oh, yes, certainly, I'll get somebody. Could you take this person? No idea what to say. Suddenly she was stuck. She'd heard my voice, seen my body. It didn't match. Somehow, oh God, I don't know if it's male or female. Now I don't know which pronouns to use. What do I say? And suddenly there was this long pause while they're trying to grasp the language that they can use. We don't have the language to deal with somebody who doesn't fit into that binary. And this is our problem. Because what is happening is that people are breaking out of that binary. Now, I'm going to suggest at the moment that the binary is the cause of all of the problems we have. When did we do when was anybody know when the Equal Pay Act came out? Do you remember what year it is, anybody? Most of you probably weren't there then, but just to give you some idea, 1970. Implemented in 1975 along with the Sex Discrimination Act. How many of you would say we have gone a long way towards equal pay? Certainly not if you work at the BBC. We haven't got there, have we? We still don't have it. Gender pay gap. Do you have any idea what the gender pay gap is at the moment in this country? The figure you'll hear is 17 to 20%. In fact, that says that basically men earn 20% more than women. Turn it around the other way, how much less, That's women earn 20% less than men. Turn it around the other way. How much more than women do men earn? It actually goes up to about 20-25%. I worked in the financial services industry where the gender pay gap was 55%. What that means is men on average earn 120% more than the average pay of women. Guess which is one of the most homophobic industries I have ever worked in my life? Recruitment. No, financial services. They're absolutely horrific. I was trying to get an actor who wasn't even gay, but just, it's Simon Ward. And I said, we're going to use Simon Ward for this actor. And my managing director said, oh, bloody hell, we're not using him. He's a bloody puff. Oh, God. And this is the managing director of a major insurance company whose attitudes, and this wasn't that long ago, we're talking about the 90s for that, but those attitudes are still around. So, is it a boy or a girl is a big problem. I'm going to try and see what we can do to tackle some of that today. Now, here's a book which helped me an awful lot when I was younger, or as I grew up, a book by John Powell, and in it John Powell says, I'm afraid to tell you who I am, because if I tell you who I am and you don't like who I am, that's all I have. What do you think is our greatest fear in life? What is the thing that we fear more than anything else as human beings? Rejection. Rejection, close, not quite there.
Loneliness.
Loneliness, on the way. Not being loved, on the way. Sorry? So, isolation, no, but it's ostracism, getting close, not being accepted. Do you know, it's the one you don't expect. Shame, ridicule, humiliation. If you get a chance to watch Brené Brown's TED Talk on it, have a look at it. But shame, humiliation. People kill themselves rather than face the shame. The crashes of the Wall Street, people killed themselves because they were ashamed, because they couldn't handle and cope with what was going to happen. Kids get bullied at school and they get shamed. This is what's happening. It's all the time. We're shaming them, making them look stupid, making them feel an idiot. Trans people take their own lives because they cannot stand and cope with the humiliation and shame of what it means to come out. And I know what that was like. I once was driving along the road and my front light wasn't working very well, and I knew it wasn't working. My partner had been away, and so, you know, she was away, so I was cross-dressed for the whole week, and I was out just having a drive around, and I saw the police car. I thought, oh, God, no, just ignore me. No, they didn't. I was only half a mile from home, but out they come behind me, flash, flash, flash. I thought, oh, no. This was 1975. This wasn't a good time. The police weren't the friends of the LGBT community then. I thought, no, I can't stop. My job's at risk. I just can't handle it. So I just drove on. Flash, flash, flash. Turned into the street to get into my street. We're now into a cul-de-sac. Flash, flash, flash. Still, I ignored it. Drove down. The blue lights are on. Everything's lit up. Got out of my car. Ran to my front door. Got in. Shut the door behind me. I'm trying to take off nail polish and makeup and looking out the window, thinking. The car was there. The lights were still on. The door was open. I think they realised they must have checked it up and thought, oh, we'll leave it, and they left. Thank God. But I wouldn't. There's no way I would have come out. I thought I would rather be arrested for failing to stop and not still be looking dressed as a woman than risk the possibility of being humiliated, taken down, arrested, all the possibilities that could go wrong with that. It's a feeling of terror that I live with nearly all my life. And today I talk to trans people who still face that same fear, and lesbian gays, not just trans, people coming out terrified that they're going to come out and they're going to face that shame, the humiliation, the rejection from family, all of those things which are connected with this. And this is one of the biggest challenges. We still haven't tackled that. When you go on the care path, you don't get any help with this. All they're concerned about is going through that surgery process. None of the social integration, none of the how do I cope, none of that's available. You have to figure that out for yourself all the way along the line. So a couple of stats. I've seen a lot of stats today. I don't want to drown you with stats. Here's a few things I think are important, though. 60% of trans people experience hate crime. 97% of us don't report it. We don't report it because if we report it, it'll get worse. Because they won't be arrested. Actually, it's getting better. A friend of mine down in Kent reported somebody who just kicked off at her in a supermarket. Absolutely went to pieces, to town on her. So she reported it. The man was arrested within 2 hours and is now serving a 12-month prison sentence. So people need to get and understand that actually just shouting at a trans person or hurling abuse at them in a public place could get you locked up now. So that's at least a good thing. We have moved on. 37% attempt suicide, but when you look at the figures for young people, you find it's almost 50% attempt suicide because we just can't cope with it. 42% too afraid to transition. Now, I think that's a hugely underestimated figure. It's 42% of the people who are actually even prepared to identify as trans. When I did my master's degree, just a little bit of backstory here. I transitioned in, well, roughly 1999 was it started. It was 2002 by the time I actually transitioned. My life has gone in 7-year cycles. I have no idea why, but I can look at it and see these 7-year cycles. So I knew 1999 was going to be a big year. It was the end of the 7th cycle of 7 years. God, this was the big one. Well, it was. It was the end of the millennium. It was the end of the decade. And it was also the year the tax authorities caught up with my lack of tax. So I lost my house, I lost my relationship, I was taken for a lot of money and I just had to pay up and didn't actually go bankrupt, but if they'd wanted any more, I would have been. So I suddenly found myself for the first time on my own, and life was just falling apart. And I think, do you know what? Life's not tough enough. I think I'll wear a dress. It felt like that. I might as well. And so I just started. I started cross-dressing at home. There was nobody there, nobody around, and that was it. And I had this friend of mine kept coming around unexpectedly, and I thought, oh God, look. I said, Chevy, I told her, oh my God, oh wow, you've got to come for Christmas dinner, and you've got to be dressed. So she gets me dressed up, and she comes down to pick me up. I said, where's your car? No, we're going to walk right through the village. Oh no. But she actually helped me an enormous amount because that pushing me and saying, look, just be yourself. You're actually cool. Great, and she accepted me so well that I suddenly started, and that's it, I came out. But I did this research. I thought, right, within 6 months of actually finally coming out, I had no work. All the bookings just stopped dead. My entire speaking career just got put on hold. And the couple of people who did book me said, oh my God, the pressure we had from management about the fact that we booked a trans person. And it's all about risk. If I mess up, they will get blamed for taking the risk. Why would you have even thought to book a trans person? Or some descriptor like that. Whereas if they just book somebody else and it failed, well, everybody else is booking them and we thought they'd be okay. But they're taking a risk because obviously you could see this is probably not going to work. So anyway, I thought, right, what am I going to do? I need to find a way in which I can get employed doing something where being trans is the reason why I get booked rather than the reason why I'm not getting booked. And I just happened to I'd moved up to Hull, stayed with some friends, and I discovered that there was a course in gender. So I ended up doing a master's degree in gender and qualified that. And part of that, I did some research with a lot of trans people. And I asked the question, is there a difference between transsexual, transvestite? Back then, that was the two terms that were being used regularly. Wow. This was again over at Christmas time. 250,000 words were written on this topic in the space of 21 days. They actually had to close the discussion down. It got so heated with this battle of transvestites versus transsexuals. And actually, when I read through all the responses, what came to me there clearly was transvestites in the main are people who, because they're 6'6", they've lost all their hair, they're married, they've got a good job, or for a number of reasons have said, I just can't cope with transitioning. It will just destroy me. So I'll just do it socially. I'll lose my wife, I'll lose my family, I'll lose everything, so I can't do it. And when I talk to the trans people who have transitioned, in the main, most of them have had to change into a new relationship. Their relationship didn't work, didn't survive it. Some did, some have been very lucky, but most relationships don't survive that. It wasn't the deal everybody else signed up to. And I think this is one of the other things that I found. When I came out, I was a jerk. Oh, my God. Did I embarrass me? I embarrassed everybody else. And the reason for that is very simple. There I was at 50, and I had missed being 18. So, damn it, I'm going to do it. High heel shoes, short skirts, strappy tops, middle of winter. Yes, let's go for it. I had to learn all those things that you learned when you're 16, 17, 18, 20, all those processes of growing up. I'd missed them, and I needed to experience them. Because, to be honest, you can't get older as a woman unless you've got that in your back history. That's what I believe, because every trans person I know ultimately seems to end up doing the clubbing and fun and let's dress up and be silly bit. And it's great fun. So, until you then settle down and realise you actually still need friends. So, 64% of trans men, 44% of trans women are bullied. I thought, why is it trans men who are bullied? And then I realised, because like most trans women, we hid. I didn't get bullied because nobody knew. Because most of my trans men friends actually were tomboys. They expressed gender in a way that was quite clear, but because women have permission to be more expressive in their gender expression, doesn't actually mean they don't get bullied. My partner's very much like this. She's not a trans man, but to be honest, would have been if she hadn't got married and got kids. And there's a whole bunch. She's one of the can't transition because of the whole bunch of reasons that she couldn't deal with. But she'd rather have been a man, and she got bullied, badly, badly bullied, for not conforming to that gender stereotype. And 33% have had to move because they are trans. I went homeless for about a year and a half, staying with friends, sofa surfing. It isn't like, homeless doesn't mean sleeping on the street, but homeless in the sense that I didn't have any fixed place of abode. My finances had gone to pieces, and I needed help. So I relied on friends, and I slept on sofas, and then I got stayed with some friends who had a spare room, and finally they actually had a house that came vacant and said, look, you can rent that. It took me quite a while to get back on my feet. So, let's just quickly look at this thing for a question, because this is the problem. We've been talking sex and gender all the time here. Two very simple words that I actually don't think anybody understands. These words that we use without really understanding them. So, just to check that out, 1 minute. Talking to the people next to you, sex, gender. Think about it. Are they the same? Are they different? Are they the same words? If you were to see an application form, you'll probably see sex MF or gender MF. Is that the same question? Is sex and gender the same? If they're not, how are they different? Just 1 minute, just to have a quick discussion. Sex and gender, how are they different? Easy question or hard question? Easy question to answer or hard question? It's not easy, is it? It's all of a sudden you start talking, oh, I'm not quite sure about this. Just to give you, it is a bit of a trick question. When I did my master's degree, this, sex or gender, what's the difference between sex and gender, was a 20-credit module. And you had 1 minute to try and figure it out. And nobody has actually come to the conclusion, because everybody's still battling out on this one. So what do we think sex was? Anybody? What's sex? So, what's sex? What you're born with, sorry?
No, to me.
So, yeah, what's sex?
Because I've separated it. Sex to me is bedroom romance and all
Absolutely right. Welcome. Here's a lady who sees elephants in the room. Because this is the problem, isn't it? It's an elephant in the room. What's sex about? Sex is about having sex. It's about doing sex. And you can have sex with same-sex partners, with opposite-sex partners, with same-sex partners and opposite-sex partners at the same time. You can do it in groups. You can do it on your own. You can do it on a computer. It's called cybersex. You can do it with animals. It's called bestiality. And it is illegal. And there's huge amounts of law all about that. The problem with sex is the moment we take the word sex and stick it in any compound word, homosexual, what does it take your mind to think about? Homosexual. What sexual act? Anal sex. Again, an elephant in the room. It's one people don't want to talk about. That's what everybody who has a problem with homosexuality, with gay people, that's what's going on in their head. If you saw that Stephen Fry documentary where he went to a couple of African countries, and these people were going nuts. It's all about you putting your penises in people. And that's all they've got this obsession with. Well, guys, let me tell you this. If you're a straight guy, most gay men won't fancy you. Because most straight guys I've seen are usually too big and they're not anywhere near fit enough. The gay community, it's all fit guys, isn't it? Well, you're doing too good. You're doing pretty good.
Please don't use me.
I know what stereotypes. No, all I'm just saying is that transsexual. What happens about transsexual? Because that's why this term is being lost. What's the first thing people think about when I say transsexual? That question instantly comes to mind. What have you done with your genitals? Have you had it cut off? Kids ask me 3 questions. Are you a man or a woman? That's the boy or girl question. I always say no. Then they say, do you go to bed with men or women? Oh, darling, at my age, there's so little choice. I hardly Have you had it cut off, I'm asked. I said, no, they don't cut it off. They peel back the skin, they cut the bit out the middle, they take it inside, they go, ah! And 2 days later, I got a knock on the door of police officers, had a complaint that you've been speaking to children in a sexually explicit manner. They asked a question, I gave them a fairly detailed response. Oh, okay, fine, we'll deal with this, we'll handle it. But see, nobody talks about this, nobody tells people, nobody actually explains what's going on. But then there's all this focus. That isn't what it's all about, as we'll see. Now, what else is sex about? Well, yeah, some of the other things you're thinking about, yes, it's about reproduction, it's about body part, it's about hormones and chromosomes, and those are all the things that we think about in terms of sexually identifying someone's sex. And yeah, you're right, you can't change that. You can reconstruct the body parts a bit to make them look something different. That doesn't make somebody into having a female body. It makes them have a reconstructed male body. And as we know, when I go into surgery, if I go into the doctors, they need to know what my body was like beforehand, because who heard the news today about prostate cancer? Yeah. Just exceeded breast cancer. Yeah. That's a big public sector equality duty issue, that one, because we don't ask men about that, where we do ask women. We check women, we don't check men, but never mind. The point is, no matter what I do to my body, I'm almost likely to, it's quite likely I'm still going to have one of those. So if I have had physical surgery and gone all through that, people need to know that actually I need checks for that. Okay? So, now, not everybody comes out of the womb with a body that fits that. We have a group of people which we now call intersex. Do you have any idea roughly how many people are intersex? We keep being told it's a very, very tight, very, very small number. I can see a few people who've been watching I'm a Celebrity. It's a tiny, tiny, it's not actually, it's 1 in every 100. 1 in every 100 have some level of intersex where they don't meet that requirement. Now, for most cases, what's been happening in the past, fix it. I've had so many people come to my service when I was running a gender service who have been fixed as babies, didn't find out till in their 20s or 30s what had happened, and now they're having to learn to cope with what was done to them. At least now we're getting to the point of saying no surgery until the child is old enough to actually agree to it and be involved in the process. There's no point in doing it because it will still keep on changing. Until they've stopped growing, you can't actually fix things. And maybe they don't want it fixed. Maybe they're quite happy that that's the way it was. So then we get to boy or a girl. And here we are at gender. We wrap the baby in a blue or pink blanket so you can't even see what the body is. And from that point onwards, we come to gender, which is all about social construction. It's all about the way in which society deals with us. What are the rules? What are the gender norms? How are you supposed to act, grow up, deliver? And that affects all sorts of things. It affects the language and the culture, education, roles, jobs, clothing, appearance, behavior, exercise. All of that is about our gender. But we enforce those rules far more rigidly than we enforce criminal law. Quite honestly, if somebody breaches the gender rules, everybody will pick on, oh God, you can't wear that, oh, you can't do that. When I was in the process of changing gender, I was sort of living partly as male, partly female, and it was getting a bit confusing with my behaviour. I'm talking to somebody one day, still dressed male, and somebody says to me, I said, oh, really? I said, you can't do that. That's not an appropriate gesture as a man. So all of a sudden I was being picked up and being told, and then I go back to being a woman and I make a really assertive decision. That's a very masculine thing to do. And it was just constantly being picked on because I wasn't performing gender. I go to see the gender identity clinic, and he says, well, I'm not really sure you're serious about this. I said, why? Well, you haven't done anything to change your voice. I said, I'm a speaker. That's what I do. I'm not going to artificially create some high-pitched voice. My voice, I've done a little bit to try and raise it. Didn't work. Sticking with it. Not having surgery on that. This is it. I am trans. Get over it. And I need to be able to speak. I need to be able to use my voice. So this is who I am. I don't have to perform according to how you think I ought to perform if I want to have the label woman or label man. And this is where we're at this problem, where we're forcing, and what I see is so many trans people move from one to the other, and immediately they have to completely conform to all of the rules about what it is and try to pass. And then blend in, and then actually go into stealth so nobody actually knows. And then we create a law which says if anybody tells anybody, they can go to prison, which is probably fair that they do that, because if they do go into stealth and somebody finds out, there's a very high chance they could actually get badly hurt or even killed. So, let's have a look at where we're going on this. So, I want to look at this. Sam Killerman in America took this model, which has been around for years, long before the internet, and he played around with it and said, I like this, put it up on the internet. Lots and lots of people chucked in loads of information. He said, hey, this, I'm just going to give it to everybody. Yeah, wasn't really my idea, I just played with it. So he's now made it open. So anyone can use this. It's absolutely, totally uncopyrighted, because 1 billion copies of this have now been downloaded off the internet. It's amazing. It's the genderbread person. You'll see it a little bit. So this is the basic idea. And all we've got is that there are 4 elements to what make up our gender. It's not as simple as we thought. There's our gender identity. That's inside our brain. That sense of who we are. Masses and masses of argument about this, but we do know that there are subtle, small differences between male brains and female brains. We also know that not all men have male brains, and not all women have female brains, and it's actually quite a lot. And in fact, you'll see there are variations of this. Then we've got orientation. Who am I attracted to? Am I attracted to men? Am I attracted to women? Am I attracted to trans people only? Am I not attracted to anybody? So what's my sexual orientation? What's my sex? Is it male? Is it female? Is it intersex? What's the condition? And then we've got gender expression, that whole sense of how do I present myself to the world? How do I let you see me? So we got those 4 elements. Now what I'm going to do, this was version 1. Now that we've gone to version 2. So this was version 1 to finish. Version 1, he said, right, this is actually like a series of spectrums from masculine at one side to feminine at the other side. Homosexual, heterosexual, male, female, etc. And we're all somewhere along the line. So already this is making gender a little bit more complex, isn't it? But then people say, no. That doesn't account for agender. It doesn't account for a whole bunch of different things. It's not quite right. So then we shifted to version 2. And actually now we're up to version 3. What's been suggested, and this has come from a huge amount of female, lots and lots of people inputting their ideas on what gender is and trying to sift that through and come up with something that actually works. And he put it back out and people said, until finally everybody said, yeah, I can find myself in this. And here we go. So what we have is this part of view, there's a bit of a scale of womanness and a scale of manness. It's like if you think testosterone and estrogen. Women have more estrogen than testosterone. Men have more testosterone than estrogen. It's not men have testosterone, women have estrogen. That isn't the way it works. We all have both, but in varying degrees. And some women have a little bit more testosterone than other women, and a little less estrogen. So we've got this scale, and exactly the same applies to gender. Let's have a look at how this works. Okay, so I'm going to take gender expression, and we'll just have a look at how this works. Now, I've got a super whizzy, very latest PowerPoint, which does also whizzy things. This one doesn't do it quite so quickly, so give it a try. So we'll just take the idea of gender expression, and here's these scales. On one hand, we've got masculine and feminine, and when we're down at this level here, then we're at neutral, agender, no gender being displayed at all. Probably nobody really in that point, but this is the point at which actually nothing you wear says male or female. It's just completely and totally neutral. Now, let's go way up to the other end, and let's just take it as up to full masculine, hypermasculine. This is the big bodybuilder, the gymmed up, ripped body. This is Rambo, Arnie Schwarzenegger. Okay, this is that absolute total masculinity. And how many of you would like a relationship with somebody who's hypermasculine? Okay, no, these are men's. Oh yeah, one. Okay. Always one. Okay. So, but I mean, there are some people who like being there, and actually, if you look at them, they spend more time in the gym. They don't enter relationships a lot of the time because it's all about. It's just quite a narcissistic position to be. Most people are a bit back from this. So that's hypermasculinity. Most men are a little bit less than that. So if we take us back here to about the middle, and what we'll find is that men are somewhere around about here. But men also have a little bit of femininity. Got to be a bit of gay there. Otherwise, guys, women aren't going to fancy you unless there's just make sure you're using a little bit of face wash or something, or wear the odd pink shirt, or just think things that you need to do which says just a little bit feminine. Yeah, cry at a few chick movies. That'll. But am I not right? Okay, this is what we want, isn't it? So this is masculine. So let's go on to the next one. So what we get then, flick back. Now, if we go to a little bit of both, that's gender neutral. If I express myself, a little bit of, not quite male, not quite female, this is a gender neutral position, and quite a lot of people beginning to do this. Now, next, let's go down, let's move the feminine, right up to hyperfeminine. Again, this is a very narcissistic position. This is absolutely everything. It's life exists purely in terms of beauty salons and nail polish and fashion and clothes, and it's just utterly and completely around that. Okay? Not the best place, not very many people. Most women are somewhere back here. Now, it's interesting that women probably have a little bit more masculinity on average than men have femininity, because women are less scared of masculinity. But that's roughly where I think we are. And then if we get to the next bit, we can reposition this. Now we've got androgynous. Now, interesting, when people say they're androgynous, I always notice they tend to be a little bit more erring on the masculine side. Women are androgynous, and it usually means that they're wearing trousers and it's a little bit more masculine. Men are struggling with androgyny because it means occasionally you might wear a skirt or something. And I've seen guys wearing skirts, not cross-dressed. They look really cool. Yeah, if men were able to just open themselves up to some of these possibilities, and then we've got the gender bender. Now, somebody else swore later on, so I'm going to swear now. It's actually also referred to as gender fuck. And you'll find that in the books. And what it means is you wear a pinstriped suit, high-heel shoes, and pearls, earrings, okay? Or you wear a nice, fluffy, floaty chiffon skirt with Doc Martens and a shaved head. Okay? So can you see the idea? Gender bending, gender fuck is where you actually say, right, I'm going to hyper-masculine, hyper-feminine, clash the two together in some kind of statement. Right, now, can you see what we've done here? Let's go back to our next slide. Just dealing with gender expression. Whoops. No, forward, sorry, it's the next slide. Sorry. Okay. Now, what we've done here is just look at this one. But we've also got biological sex, romantic attraction, sexual attraction, gender identity, and the same kind of scale exists in all of those. So can you see how with this, I mean, you have to ask the question, don't we? How many genders are there? quite a lot. How you express yourself, how you display yourself is about you taking on a personal idea of how your gender should be. And we are moving that way. Younger people, the millennials, have got a lot less problem with gender expression, a lot less problem with sexuality. They're much more comfortable about just saying, hey, I am who I am, this is who I am, this is me. And you are going to get more and more times of thinking, I don't know if they're male or female, I can't tell. I don't understand it. We had a little bit of this back in the 1970s when I was a hippie, where people would say, can't tell whether you're a male or female, boy or a girl. But then it went with the Thatcher era. Yes, but yeah, we're getting back to that, but in a very different way now. In a very different way. Next. Now, some of you may have noticed that Facebook has decided to become a little bit more creative with their options on gender. And so we've got this whole range of different, can you do the next slide? This whole range of different, and there's a few more there, and the next, and there's, in fact, there are 70 different gender options that you can pick. There's not a big list, you just start typing and it comes up with a list. I've added these in on the bottom here, trans, man, woman, demigender. I'm probably near a demigender. Demigender says that you express gender on a sort of spectrum, but mostly keeping to one side. So I tend to be more female to the middle. I don't actually go much into the male end. But, you know, and then we got demi-man and demi-woman. Actually, there's a few more which Facebook didn't even start to deal with these. How we going? There we go. We've got drag queens, female impersonators, she-males. This is the sex industry there. Ladyboys, Katoi, Hydra, Travesty, Two-Spirit, Sworn Virgins in Albania, the Moose. This is a whole bunch of Pacific Islands, Africa, the Oman. This is the Indonesia, Philippines. Oh, eunuch. They're in the Bible, aren't they? When you look at the description of eunuchs, and then you look at the description of Hydra in India, there's not a lot of difference. The Hydra traditionally had all the genitals removed. Some were intersex. And they lived a largely female life, but they were born male. When you look at the two spirits from the North American Indians, the North American Indians completely accepted the idea that the great spirits, at least they had a different idea. I was just thinking the other day, a friend of mine's son came back from school once, and he said, I'm in trouble, the teacher wants to see you. He said, oh, God. She said, what now? Well, it was the teacher's fault. She said, oh, go on, tell me what. Well, the teacher said, what sex is God? And I said, well, I think he's bisexual. I think bisexual. And she said, and so she sent me to the head, and I'm in trouble for saying it was bisexual. Do you know, what was happening in his head was the idea that maybe God is both. Maybe God is part of. Maybe God is neither male nor female. Maybe that's what it should be. The whole idea of God as man was created by men who developed the religion. But you know, a lot of the spirits, if you look at Indian gods and goddesses, whole range of male and female Indians. So anyway. I think eunuchs have been around, suggests that trans people have been around at least, well, we think about 4,000 years, to be honest. There have been trans and gender variant people around for a long time. Let's have a quick look at some of the numbers here, because I think this is what people, this is gender fluid, I forgot to mention that. Gender fluid is when people move between genders, and this is one day you feel quite masculine, another day you feel quite feminine, and we all feel that some days, don't we? You got to do the garden. Oh God, I'm not going to put nails in on that. We're just going to go for it. And another time you might feel, why not? The question here is which are the boys and which are the girls? Can you tell? Let's just put some names on these, and you might recognise them. Ruby Rose, Rain Dove, both born female, but both male models and female models. And Stav and Tima do both male and female, but mostly actually female modelling, but both still identify as male. So people are just mixing up how they present and how their body is in ways that we're going to have to get used to this, because this is what's happening. More and more and more people are challenging gender and just saying that I'm neither. I'm not one or the other. Next. So let's just have a look at these numbers, because this is where everybody gets a bit confused. At the moment, a huge amount of focus on trans people on the media. We've had India Willoughby in the Big Brother house kicking off and saying all sorts of stupid things. So I'm not a big fan of hers. We've got others around. We've got the whole issues over the states, over toilets and everything else. So we think in the UK it's about 1% of the population. It seems to be the same in Thailand. Other places where these figures are going, people even say it could be higher than that, might be as high as 3%, but I think we'll go at 1. What it does mean is that we've got about 650,000 people who are on the trans spectrum in the UK. Interestingly, when we researched them, 80% are male to female. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that most of the people that we see visibly as trans are male to female?
We don't really notice those who've perhaps gone from female to male as much.
Well, no, I will agree. When somebody's gone from male to female, so when someone goes from female to male, they tend to, testosterone has a massive effect. You tend to just blend in. Your voice drops, hair falls out, beard. It pretty much disguises you. It's very hard to say, oh, gosh, I can see that was once a woman. Whereas for a trans woman, big hands, big head, deep voice, out of apple, all those things we can't change without really, really invasive surgery. So we tend not to, so we tend to get noticed. But I think the big issue here is that if you think of a scale in terms of gender expression, if as a woman, how far down this scale of expressing myself towards masculinity can I go before somebody starts to notice? Well, actually, if I was to take all of you ladies into Burton's and said, right, get dressed up only in clothes available here, how many of you think would be noticed when you came out, all dressed up in stuff from Burton's? But if I took all the guys here next door into Dorothy Perkins and got you all dressed up in clothes only available in Dorothy Perkins, do you think anybody would spot it when you came out? They would, because for men, you can get about as far as pink shirt before people are beginning to start saying, okay, well, so what happens is that for men, we go so far and we think, I can't go any further. So we then have to go right over here, impersonate a woman. Pass, somehow hide ourselves and disguise ourselves. Well, we can't. That middle ground isn't available. So I think this is what's happened, is that women can do pretty much everything they want. Now, what I have noticed is a lot of young trans men are coming out now, begin to say, no, actually, I want to identify as male. I actually feel male. I want to be there, and that's it. So we're getting out more. Receiving clinical care, about 20,000. It's really hard to put a number on this because we don't know how many are going across to Thailand, how many are going other parts of the world. But this is the figures we can get. And I've had to estimate this from the last figures I had. I think it's going up at about 1,000 a year at the moment. Now, what next, though? Now, here we see transitioning and living in the new gender. Only 7,000, apparently, currently living in the new gender. Again, that figure might be changing because a lot are going into stealth. But this figure I know is clear. Less than 5,000 people have a gender recognition certificate to say that they have legally changed their gender. Less than 5,000. I have one. One of the early ones, but it's not very many. You've done the shared one. So you haven't gone through that yet. It's a complex process, and I'm going to look at it in a minute. But what it's saying is that the proportion of people who actually physically change gender, have surgery, hormones, whatever it is a tiny, it's the tip of the iceberg by comparison, isn't it? I'm noticing time, so I'm going to have to move.
No, it's fine. No,
okay.
It's fine. Yeah.
So it's very small. So what I want to try and understand is that when people think trans, don't instantly assume because they're trans, they're going through surgery, on a care path, they're going through medical. That isn't it. That's the unusual. That's the minority path. Most trans people try to cope in other ways, and they get no help at all. Absolutely none. Not unless they pay for it. Sexual orientation, about 6 in every 100, according to Stonewall. Intersex, 1 in every 100. Non-binary, about 1 in every 200, but it's growing really, really fast. I think we're going to see this figure get a lot bigger. What it means is that overall, we're talking about 1 in every 10 people at the moment doesn't conform to the gender binary. If we scrap the gender binary completely, I think that figure would leap to about 1/3 of the population. I think quite literally 1/3 of the population are male, about 1/3 are female, and about 1/3 somewhere in between. These are the terms we use, trans or transgender. The term that's increasingly now coming in is gender variant or gender queer. Now, it's like the LGBT community has reclaimed the term queer. It's no longer considered a negative term. Any label shouted across the street with the F word added onto it is negative, okay? Doesn't matter what word you do. If you use the word in an abusive way, it's an abusive term. But queer just says, okay, fine. I don't fit I don't fit with the stereotype of men and women, okay? Now, trans woman, trans man, I consider myself a trans woman, although I'm beginning to increasingly think I wish I had another label there. I'm going to have a look at that other 70 and see if I can find one I like. I like nutoir, actually. That's quite nice, isn't it? I'm nutoir. I don't know where that quite came from. It sounds like sort of neutral and French for three all mixed together. But a lot of trans women get rid of the trans bit and just say, oh, no, I am man or woman, okay? And just blend into society and get on with it. And that's what happened. A lot of trans people just get on. So the people who are visible, the ones that we are going to be aware of and see, those are the ones who are very often gender variant, gender queer, and other things. Now, just so you understand, how many of you do not know what the word cisgender means? Anybody got an idea? Okay, some of you don't know. Right, and we had this problem, transgender. What do we call somebody who's not transgender? And you cannot say normal because that doesn't work. So we had to find another word. So the trans community invented a word which we've now given to you with our grateful thanks for you to wear with pride. You are now, if you are not trans, you are now cis, which means same as, same gender. So cisgender and transgender. Now, it's happened so fast that last year the Oxford Dictionary said, oh my God, where'd that word come from? Bloody hell, everybody's using it already. Okay, we'll put it in. It doesn't normally happen that quickly, but they've actually put it into the new Oxford Dictionary. So cisgender is there. It's a done deal. You may not like it, but some trans people connects. Right, so I'm very, very quickly going to go through a couple of things here. This is the gender recognition. Now, this is what we're trying to get rid of, this fact that you've got to be 2 years in your acquired gender, 2 years being supervised. You could have lived there for 10 years in your gender, but when you start, no, you've got to be supervised for 2 years. 2 medical practitioners sign. You don't have to have surgery, but my God, you've got to justify why you haven't. If you're married, you've got to have your partner has the right to veto. Yeah, because they can say, no, I didn't sign up to be married to another woman or another man, so they can veto it if they want, and therefore you have to have a divorce. Your birth certificate is changed, and for all legal respects, you're then in your new gender. What's going to happen? Well, possibly might get changed this year. I don't know. Justin Green is now. Yeah.
It has to go and be approved by a panel.
Yes.
And you don't know when it's going to meet.
No, it's a bit slow, isn't it? Yeah.
And you don't get any feedback from them other than to say yes.
Yeah. It's a bit of a silly process. This gender panel that you have to go to. Yeah, I agree. The whole process is long-winded. It actually costs quite a lot of money as well.
I didn't know mine.
Oh, right. I got mine, but I've lost it. So and I was born in Malta, and so I didn't bother to change my birth certificate because I thought, oh God, Malta had a terrible situation. Now Malta has the gold standard, so I'm thinking, right, maybe I'll move to Malta, change my. In fact, maybe if I move to Malta, I can get a Maltese passport, and then I can get out of this bloody Brexit thing as well. Never mind. There are all sorts of options. Now, what about third gender? You can already use MX. Instead of Ms, Mr, Ms. And that's accepted through all government civil service. You have to accept it. You must have it on your system. If you haven't, people can use it because it's accepted by the government. This is the one. Australia's done it. Washington in America has just put X, I think it's on driving licenses. They can't do passports because that's national. I think Spain has done that. India, Nepal definitely has done. There are a few countries doing it, others thinking about it. There's a lot of argument for this. It may still, I think it's going to happen here. I think we are moving that way. So we're actually going to get people putting X on their passport saying I'm neither gender, and that's increasingly going to happen. I think X is what it's going to be because there's already a few countries done it and it's got the one, but that's the non-binary proposed. So we've talked about this, so I'm not going to go too much into it today because people talk about it. It is an offence to disclose to anyone outside of your work that somebody you're dealing with, a client or a patient or a member of staff, has changed their gender. Okay, it's 6 months in prison and or £5,000 fine. And trust me, it costs so many problems. I've worked with a few clients where there have been problems with this. And even if somebody hasn't got a gender recognition certificate, if they kick up enough stink with the press and with the local authorities and with the council and everybody else, you will end up having a major inquiry and somebody's job will probably get scrubbed. So don't disclose information about people's gender. Just hide it, conceal it. Now, the only reason I'm putting this up, again, we've got these 9 protected characteristics, which we're all aware of, and this really is the odd one out, isn't it? Every one of those is a characteristic about something about me. I'm disabled, I have age, we all have age, and we can be discriminated, but it's got to be certain rules. Then we get the gender reassignment. It's a process. In fact, the original process was that anyone who is going or has undergone a medically supervised process of gender reassignment, at least they changed that to a personal process. The Equalities Act, the Government Equalities Office said, no, it still means only people going through gender reassignment are covered. Talk to the Equality and Human Rights Commission. We had a long discussion about this. They said, no, it's quite clear. Personal process means personal process started. If you start cross-dressing, that's it. You've started the process. If you go and see a counsellor because you're confused about your gender, you've started the process. And this is very much a process I've started. You do not need to finish. You only have to start the process. But in any case, if you look at the types of discrimination, everything starts to change now. Because when you look down this list of direct discrimination, indirect discrimination, associated, perceived, positive action, this is the one that's important. Just click that next one there. Perceived discrimination. If you look as if you might be trans and I discriminate against you because of that, then automatically you're going to be covered. So that actually means that people who are gender non-conforming, gender binary, whilst you might think they're not covered by the Equality Act, actually, yes, they are. Because if they are perceived to be trans or perceived to be gay or perceived to be... I remember when I was transitioning, I went to see my daughter one day and she phoned me up after. She said, Dad, please, if you come as a man, that's cool, I can deal with that. If you come as a woman, I can handle that. But if you come somewhere in between, that gives me such a problem. And this is it. People who are non-binary are getting more problems than people who are trans, because at least trans, we sort of blend in with everybody else. But if you're non-binary, you're standing out like a sore thumb saying, yay, I refuse to comply. And that's it. That's when you start getting this crap. So you're covered. And if you get any harassment, just look up the law on harassment. People need to know what we can do with this. Harassment, click again, occurs when someone engages in unwanted behavior which is related to a relevant protected characteristic and which has the effect of, click, yep, violating a person's dignity. Or, and this is the one that's creating an intimidating, hostile, degrading, humiliating, or offensive environment for that person. So my partner went to college to do a course in animal management. 3 of the girls in the course were very homophobic, young girls, and they started having all sorts of comments about one of the lecturers who was gay. And the lecturer at that particular time did nothing about it. So my partner, not wanting to kick up any stink or fuss, phoned me and said, please don't pick me up tonight. I'll get my son with it. I don't want anyone to see you. That was harassment. Within the public sector equality duty, the college had failed to handle it properly, and we could have tackled them over it. In fact, we did at one stage, and they got very uppity, and we just didn't have enough money to push it. So here's the important thing. Telling jokes, having comments around people about people who are gay, lesbian, trans, it creates harassment. And therefore, just making a silly aside joke in the office is enough for you to suddenly find yourself being challenged with harassment, and that's probably going to lose you your job first. Might end up in court, might end up you never being able to get back into a career in health again. It's so easy to get caught with this. So, nobody knew the term misgendering until about a month ago when India Willoughby went on Big Brother, Celebrity Big Brother, and screamed, "You've misgendered me!" People misgender me all the time, especially when I'm on the phone. Had it yesterday. I phoned up somewhere. "Oh, yes, sir." "No, actually, it's not sir, it's madam." "Oh, sorry, sir." Oh, God, Jesus.
I was actually dealing with a complaint about the fact that they misgendered me on a letter.
Yeah.
And on the phone, when I was phoning them to say, "Look, this is the
They misgender you, yeah.
They kept on misgendering.
Now, here's the thing. Persistent misgendering is harassment. So you've got to change it. I got called in to do some work for a small care home where one of the staff had changed gender. They changed from female to male, gone back to female again because they were having such a hard time, and then said, no, I'm going to do this, and went back to it. So they've been a year, 2 years, I think, actually, in total. And one of the women absolutely would not do it. So I went in and doing it was very much a round table type workshop. And I said, look, Lewis is complaining that you are really misgendering him. Well, we've known her for such a long... I said, him. "Oh, yeah. Well, it's just that she's been..." I said, her. And she would not get it. 15 minutes of conversation, not once did she actually use this term right. The other week, we see some guy who's a teacher who's been suspended because he's refused to treat a child in school in their appropriate gender. Goes on this Good Morning with Philip Schofield. And so Philip said, but you keep calling him a girl. Well, she's decided, no, it's him. And Philip Schofield corrected him 3 or 4 times and said, no, you're using the wrong... "Oh, well, this is the point, isn't it? I don't recognise and accept." And finally he admitted it. He'd been sacked because he adamantly refused. So he's been sacked, and that's it. If you keep on misgendering, it's a sackable offence, it's offensive, it's a problem. So, now... those are the terms that we normally use: he, she, Miss, Mrs, markers, M and F. We're going to move to something different, aren't we? The easiest thing to do, third gender pronouns are a bit difficult for 2 reasons. One, that's the most common ones, developed by a trans woman called Kate Borstein. But there are about 10 different options that people are using in different places. And they're some sound a bit too masculine, some sound a bit too feminine, some people don't like... Most people don't, somewhere along the line, like some of these new pronouns. We haven't really got those right. The easiest thing is to go to plural, because we already have this convention when we're writing of using plural pronouns for singular situations. Now, people say, well, I just don't get it in my head, I can't think about it. Well, okay, let's just go back to the idea of 2 spirits. The North American Indians said this person had the spirit of man and the spirit of woman born in one person. So consider non-binary people not as one person who's nothing, but as 2 people come together. And therefore you're talking about them. So if you think of anybody non-binary as actually being 2 people in one, it's man and woman in the same body, it's male and female energies in the same person, and immediately you're then talking to 2 people. And the moment you think of them as 2 people, you automatically then clock into using those. Now here's another suggestion. Why don't we just all use the plural ones and just scrap the single ones anyway? If you're non-binary particularly, what I would suggest, something I'm going to start doing, I'm going to start using that all the time. Certainly in my writing, I'm already doing it. Just dropping the he and she in everything I'm writing, just do that. We've just got to get people, it's just a matter of getting people used to it. It takes time, but as time goes on, it's already beginning to get there. And the MX and the X markers, well, those are going to come. But this is, we're talking future focus, this is where we're going to be going in the future. I don't think this is a trend, I don't think this is just a fad, I think this is actually a movement that's shifting, because we've broken through trans people are out there, celebrities, we're part of it. And people, once upon a time you couldn't get a job in broadcasting if you were gay. Now you probably can't get a job in broadcasting unless you're gay. But there we go. Let's we do it. And finally, I'm just going to finish you one little story, and I'm sorry, I'm really overrun. So, treat everyone with dignity and respect. This is the basic rule. I know Peter's our expert on human rights. But if you look at all the human rights, there's lots of, it's a complex legislation, but ultimately it comes down to this. If we could all buy into this, treat everyone with dignity and respect, we could probably scrap a few thousand pages of legislation. How many of you would have no problem living by that principle, treat everyone with dignity and respect? How many of you? Okay? Just press that. Everyone. Not just all those people who deserve it, which this government would like to have. Everyone. That's murderers, paedophiles, terrorists, rapists. Treat everyone with dignity and respect. How many of you may have a bit of a problem with this now? Yeah. And this is the challenge about human rights. Because unless you know for certain, there's a problem. And even if you know for certain, we still, if we treat them without treating with dignity and respect, if we think, okay, fine, they're rapists, so we can actually beat them up and kick them, and are we any better than the people who've committed the crime in the first place? Can we allow, and human rights is about the way the state treats us. Let me just give you a thing, because it actually it's more than that. This is about us as individuals treating everybody with dignity and respect. Doesn't mean we don't punish people, doesn't mean they don't get arrested, doesn't mean we don't bring the full force of law against people who are bad, but October 2008, I've got these kids have been doing all this stuff, throwing bloody stones at my house to get my attention because they knew there was a tranny there. It was mostly just to get her attention. And one day, October 2008, I see a little hole in one of the windows. I thought, oh, God, no. So I left it. I just thought just somebody thrown a stone too hard. Following week, bedroom window's gone. I thought, this is stupid. So I phoned up the non-emergency number. I said, I think I've got a hate crime ongoing. I've got kids throwing stones at my house. All right, we'll get someone to look at it. Nothing happened. Following week, oh my God, I thought there was a hailstorm going on. I went to the back of my house. I've got these French windows. Opened the French windows. Stones clattering through into my kitchen. The French windows shattered. And I picked up the phone. I said, I'm under attack. I've got a bunch of kids throwing stones. This is like urban terrorism. She said, this is not a hate crime. This is not a emergency. This is children causing a nuisance. Please put the phone down and dial the non-emergency number. I said, you're kidding me. I'm under attack. I said, if you do not put down the phone, I will report you for misuse of the 999 number. I'm an activist. I put the phone down and I immediately phoned my friend, the Chief of Police for Hull, and reported to him what was going on. The following day, I've got the entire PCSO team, the area inspector, the area sergeant, the area car floating around my house, all going, we're very sorry. We can fix it. 999 Centre is now on emergency retraining, and we've finally got something. Over the next 2 weeks, I phoned 999 11 times. Got to the point where when I phoned 999, I said, I've got to report a hate crime. Oh, is that Ricky? Yeah, fine. So when you're on first name terms with them, you know something's going wrong. These kids were just non-stop. They wouldn't. Got to this final Monday, they came around there riding their bikes around the front of my house. I had the windows boarded up at the back. They're chucking mud up at the house. I thought, that's it, I've had it. I grabbed this big pole, ran outside there. Come on, you little oh, God, was I angry. How many of you would have been with me, ready to take their heads off? I was furious. Kid there standing with mud dripping from his hands. I said, what are you doing this for? Ooh, are you a man or a woman? Oh, I actually like that question. You know, when people ask that question, it says, help me understand. Nobody else has told me what's going on. I said, look, I said, well, you've got a pole. I said, oh, I'll put the pole down. You put the mud down. Why are you wearing no shoes? Why do you do this? Are you a man? And suddenly I've got 20, 30 kids standing around me. I'm delivering a Trans Awareness workshop on the green outside my house. And then it happened. One of the kids pulled up his balaclava. And tell you that they're doing balaclavas, hiding under so they couldn't see it. And I knew it was all over. Yeah, the police did arrive, the kids all dispersed, but that was it. Never had another problem after that because I told them, I answered their questions, we had a conversation. I treated them with dignity and respect, despite what they had done. What would have happened if I'd hit them with the pole?
Arrested.
I'd have been arrested. I'd have been drummed out of the air. I would never have been able to stay. So this is it. We have to do this. We have to treat people with dignity and respect. Educate them. If you look at the public sector equality duty, it's all about educating, informing, helping people to understand. the differences, because some people are just grown up in an area where they don't understand what's going on. Encourage them to understand, help them understand, and we can start to tackle some of these problems. Find a way to be able to deal with everybody, ask questions, and just engage and become a more inclusive society. That's where we're going. Hope you found that very useful. Thank you.